Live. To everyone watching on Facebook Live, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I am here with Jeb Blount. Jeb is a person I would consider the foremost expert on sales and prospecting. And as some of you have heard me just rant and rave before about his phenomenal book, Fanatical Prospecting, which I'm rereading for the second or third time right now. Jeb's also authored several other books, all on sales. And so without further ado, I'd like to just kind of give it over to Jeb. If you've got your 60-second intro for the few that may not have heard of you before.
Well, thank you very much. It's fun to be here. I am Jeb Blount. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Sales Gravy. We're a global sales training company, the author of 10 books, including Fanatical Prospecting, which I know we're going to talk today, and right behind me, my brand new book, Objections. And I spent all my time talking about sales and salespeople, so this is a great opportunity to continue that discussion.
Awesome. Well, we have had several questions that have come in that I don't want to take up too much screen time, so I'll just ask them and toss them to you. So number one is, what do you think is the biggest problem in the way most people structure their day-to-day schedule?
That's a great question. One of the hallmarks of ultra high-performing salespeople is that they have a daily battle rhythm. And that's a daily routine that they run through, and it's a routine that they stick to. And time discipline in particular is a really, really big deal. And it's one of the reasons why so many salespeople are sub-optimizing their income. So what the best salespeople do is they treat their day like two parts. In the middle of the day are the golden hours. And the golden hours are the times during the day when you have the highest probability of having a conversation with someone who can buy something from you. And then the platinum hours, and the platinum hours, the shoulder hours, those are the times of the day when you can plan, when you can research, when you can organize your day. So for most salespeople, the platinum hours are before 8 o'clock in the morning and after 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so what you want to do is make sure that in the platinum hours, you're getting research done, you're building your prospecting list, you're checking your email, you're doing all of the administrative things that get in the way of having real conversations with real people. So the biggest mistake that salespeople make is that they come in the morning and they start their day on email, and they spend half their morning on email, and then they fiddle fart around and they look on the internet, they do some research, and they plan to have a conversation with someone. And if you want to change that, you have to think about what you have to do every day to make an impact. And that's really focusing on what are you putting into the pipeline and what are you moving through the pipeline. So if you want to be more productive, the best thing you can do is begin your day with a prospecting block, then move into, emailing prospects, follow-up blocks, then move into going out and spending time with people. If you're an outside sales rep, if you're an inside sales rep, move into demos, presentations, that type of thing. But don't start your day with email, and don't start your day with administrative stuff, and don't start your day with cat videos. If you start your day with cat videos, you're probably going to end your day with cat videos.
Yeah, I love one of the quotes in your book. You say, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't find the exact one, but you said a salesperson that doesn't interrupt has hungry children. And what you're referring to is calling. And so that what you said is a perfect segue into one of the questions we get a lot of. And I'll go ahead and give you the honest truth is I'm a lot of my background is in digital marketing. And so, but I have spent a lot of time on the phone. I started my career making 50 to 100 cold calls a day. And so I have this love-hate relationship with calling. And in your book, you talk a lot about filling those golden hours with calls to prospects. Can you talk about maybe what you should fill that golden hour with, and how you recommend to get those calls into your daily schedule?
Yeah, so when we start thinking about outreach and you being a digital marketer, that's where a lot of communication has gone. We're communicating through direct messaging on social media. We're sending emails to people, text messaging, and we're avoiding human contact. And the reason that I love the phone so much is that the phone is part of a balanced prospecting framework. So it's not that there's something wrong with email or digital marketing or any of those things. And in fact, when we start talking about digital marketing, there's a big mashup right now between sales prospecting and marketing. But the telephone is the fastest, easiest way to have a conversation with a real human being. And the last time I checked as salespeople, we got paid to talk to people. Like that's where the value is added. So the phone is the fastest, easiest way that you can have that conversation. So that's why I recommend that you begin your day with a phone block, because you said this, I have a love-hate relationship with the telephone. And if you have a hate relationship with the telephone, trust me, you're going to put it off and put it off and put it off until it's too late. And the other problem that you're going to face is when you start calling people mid-afternoon, nobody's answering the phone because they're typically in meetings, they're covered up with tasks, they're doing things that doesn't keep them near their phone. And in the morning, people are typically planning. Now, if you're calling B2C, then your morning might be at 6 o'clock at night when people are at home. But however, people are beginning that period of time where they're beginning that space in their day, you want to be calling at the beginning of that. My recommendation is that you block an hour or 2 hours every single morning for telephone prospecting, and then you break that up into high intensity prospecting sprints. So for example, you said, I was making 50 cold calls a day. I can basically make 50 cold calls in an hour. So a lot of people say that's just nuts and it's crazy, but there's two things I do. One is I get my list prepared in advance, so I know exactly who I'm gonna call. And two, there's no interruption. I dial and I'd make notes in the margins, and then I take all the information that I have and I update it in my CRM or wherever my database is after that call block. And the way that I do that is typically I break it up into 15-minute, 20-minute, or 30-minute call blocks. So I usually do 15 minutes, 15 dials, and my focus is set one appointment. I take 5 minutes, update any information that I got, because sometimes I didn't get the appointment, but I got information, and then I do another 15 minutes, another 15 minutes, another 15 minutes. And when you do that, concentrating all your focus in a short period of time with a single goal and moving really, really fast, you'd be amazed that most people can knock out between 30 and 50 dials in an hour of concentrated calling. And when you do that, you get it done, and you get appointments, and you have conversations with people, and you qualify, and then you have the rest of your day for digital marketing and email and outreach through social media and things that don't necessarily require you to be linear with when people are available to answer the phone. You can send an email any time of day.
Right. So that brings up another. So I'll watching this. The first takeaway is to block your day, block your time for specific tasks, and make sure that one of those big blocks is focused on making calls. And this is what I tell a lot of my clients that are intimidated by the phone, and you may agree, but don't feel intimidated by that number of making 50 calls in an hour or two. If you, and I think you write about this in the book, that if you have to start with a block of 10 calls and that's your daily block of calls, and you're sweating through that, but you build that habit over time, then that's a good place to start. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I've made thousands and thousands and thousands of prospecting calls. But there have been times in my life where I've been in a slump, or I've gotten behind the 8 ball, or I haven't been feeling really good about myself, and I really don't want to make the call. And the 10-minute rule is something that has helped me get over that hump, because anybody can be great for 10 minutes. And what I would do is I would say, okay, 10 minutes, 10 dials. Now, I didn't always get 10,000 in 10 minutes, but I was going to dial hard for 10 minutes, no distractions, nothing in the way. Then I'll go get a cup of coffee and, reward myself, and I'll come back and do it again. And that's one of the reasons that I love, we call them HIPs, but high intensity prospecting sprints, because if you just focus your time a little at a time, you can get a lot done. And by the way, that works for everything else. It works for you doing administrative work. It works for your marketing work. It works for anything that you have to do. Is if you put a time limit on something and you concentrate all your focus on one thing at a time instead of multitasking, you'll get way more done than anybody else does.
Yep. And so this is a theme that's going to come up, I know, a lot in here, because I talk about this, and I know a lot of people that are in sales, they have an athletic background. I played small college basketball, and I know at least 3 or 4 other folks in this group played college sports. And something we're very familiar with is that idea of a sprint for a short period of time. Because like you said, you can go all out for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Anybody can. And then taking a break, rewarding yourself, getting a cup of coffee if you need to reward yourself with a sweet or whatever it is, or go for a walk. But really, really focusing on today. It might only be 10 minutes. It might be 15, 20, 30 minutes until you've got yourself into a flow where you can do that for longer. So that's great. I do want to transition, though, into something that even though this is a sales book, you definitely talk about it, if not by name directly. You talk a lot about marketing and personal of familiarity. And so I wonder if you could talk for a bit about the role that branding and content creation does take or does make in a salesperson's day.
There's no doubt that familiarity is important. So the way to look at it is that every single human being lives inside a familiarity bubble. And that includes people, that includes their surrounding area, the geography, and we tend to interact with things and trust things and people that we're more familiar with. So the reason we call it a cold call is because people don't know who you are. And sometimes people call them warm calls because people do know who you are. I tend to stay away from warming things up. But the reality is that when you're calling and you're interrupting people, the more they're familiar with you, the more likely they are to engage on that particular call. So prospecting in and of itself, sending an email, picking up the phone and calling someone, meeting someone at a networking event, knocking on a particular door, networking in and of itself, or prospecting in and of itself, creates familiarity, because the more they see your face, the more they see your phone number, the more they see your brand, the more familiar they come with you or become to you. But also social media, which is a huge way that we reach people these days, digital marketing, SEO, SEM, advertising, especially if you're in the consumer world, those things make a difference too, because the more someone sees your face and the more they see your name, the more they're familiar with you. And that's the reason that big brands advertise all the time. And there is a mashup in prospecting and digital marketing. And the problem that we face is that sometimes people either are on one side of the pendulum or the other versus balancing the two things. You need to have time set aside for making sure that people know who you are and getting out here. I mean, we're doing a Facebook Live right now. So I don't know how many people are on, but there are some people who are seeing us right now who are becoming familiar with who we are, that may be a door that we open up down the road. And I think especially for entrepreneurs and individuals who are out, trying to build their businesses, there is nothing more important to you than getting people familiar with who you are. But that takes a little bit of work every single day. You've got to recognize that you're not going to get out there and do something and all of a sudden the whole world's going to know who you are. It's going to take a little bit at a time. And it is the cumulative impact of a little bit of work you do every day in prospecting and in marketing and creating familiarity that over time begins to add up. And one of the things that you said when we came on, you said, if you don't know who Jeb is, because most people know who I am, and in the sales world, a lot of people do know who I am. I'm sure there's people who don't know who I am. But in 2006, when I started this journey to start my business, there was not a soul who knew who I was. And I had 12 people on my prospecting list. I mean, that was all I had. And one of them was my mom. But, today there are 1.2 million people on my email list. So when I send a newsletter out or I do a book, I can move the world because I have that many people. But that took 12 years of constant, ongoing effort, from marketing to sales, to build that list. And I'm a prolific list builder. I do this all the time. I'm working at it constantly. I count how many people we add every single week. And it's just part of the system, because a list today becomes a prospect that I call tomorrow, that creates an opportunity that builds my business, that allows me to grow.
That's great. And for everyone who's following, there's two key takeaways there. One of them is that consistency, and just laying that brick every day, lay another brick, lay another brick, lay another brick. And next thing you know, you look up and you've built a house, right? You've built a foundation that you can then find your actual sales opportunities in. The second thing you talk about is, and you've used this phrase at least a couple of times already, is balance, is that balanced approach. I can't for the life of me figure out why there is this odd animosity between people that consider themselves in a sales role versus those that consider themselves in a marketing role. Those two things they're cousins, they're brothers, they're roommates. Like, those are absolutely are dependent on one another. And so I wonder if you could comment on just that, how to fix that problem of that misalignment between the two.
Well, I think some of it's just history. There was a time when marketing and sales were just disconnected. So marketing's job essentially was to advertise and create messaging, and sales their job was to go chase leads down. The thing is that when we talk about digital mashed all that up. We at my company use a tool called HubSpot. So HubSpot's a big digital marketing, inbound marketing tool. It's also our CRM. So our salespeople are in the middle of the marketing machine all the time, and they have opportunities to run marketing campaigns and run sales campaigns. So on one hand, we may be running a workflow against an inbound lead to better qualify that lead, and then we may be moving that lead into a prospecting sequence right after that, using the tools that are inside of HubSpot. And HubSpot's a perfect example of the mashup of sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. And if you want to grow your business and you want to create that level of familiarity where people know you, and you want to reach prospects where they are, it's not a two-part discipline. It is a flow almost from marketing into sales. And the one place, by the way, that I see everybody going wrong in this is that the digital piece starts getting in the way of the human piece. So it's really, really easy to sit all day long. And I just came back from having a conversation with a group of entrepreneurs up in Nashville. It's easy to sit all day long and build all of this marketing stuff out. And, it's to, be creative and build your blog and do all these things and never actually talk to anybody and go and starve to death. So the balance is build it and pick up the phone, and you do a little bit every day. And I love your analogy about the brick. The cumulative impact of laying a brick every day is that one day you have a house. The cumulative impact of a little bit of activity every single day is that one day you have a business that is thriving and growing. And one important point is that in today's fast-moving world where the technology is everywhere and digital is taking over, and human-to-human contact and the ability to deal with human beings is becoming a real asset because of digital, you can't ever take a day off. You can't take a play off. You mentioned athletics. You can't not hustle every single day, because if you do, somebody's going to eat your lunch.
Right. And so a couple of things there is, now you're talking to a long time HubSpot user, fan, evangelist, whatever you want to call that. And so this is a question that I get a lot, is how do you best marry the technology with your prospecting and your marketing efforts? And one point you make in Fanatical Prospecting is that it doesn't count until it's on the calendar, right? And so if you could give a few of your best tips for using a CRM, not so much as just a data gatherer, but as a proactive tool, and then marrying that with your other technology to get folks on the calendar.
So I'll get deep into the weeds on this. So if you just take HubSpot. Now I'm a Salesforce user too, so I don't want to leave them out. But I'm a little schizophrenic because I'm running two different CRMs, but I use them for two different reasons. Mm-hmm. But in HubSpot, for example, we have a HubSpot score for our leads, and that's a score that we built. So we went in and we said, if you have all of these data points for a particular contact, then their score goes up. So for example, we want to know how many salespeople they have because we're a sales training company. We want to know when their annual sales meeting is because we do keynote speeches. We want to know, are they a B2C buyer? Would they buy one of our training courses as an individual, or would they buy a training course for all the people? So there's a whole list of qualifiers. If you look at our contact going down the left-hand side, there's a list of qualifiers and there's a HubSpot score. So when you're prospecting, part of prospecting is gathering information. There's some information that we can gather when someone comes into a form and some that we can't. And sometimes we want to bring people in and not get in the way of them connecting with us. So we don't put a whole lot of stuff in our forms. We need to call them and connect with them and grab that information. But the way that you turn this information into action is that as that information gets put in, we've created a series of prospecting lists. And those prospecting lists guide the purpose for our call. So for example, let's say that I have a list of prospects and their score is less than 50, my scale. If it's less than 50, then one of my salespeople, and my salespeople each have their own list with their name on it. So one of my salespeople who owns that particular contact, they have a list, their morning call block, their information gathering call block is all of those prospects on that list in a particular industry. So I'm able to build these lists dynamically based on all of these different points. If the list is over, say, 100 on the qualifying list, and it's in a particular industry, the purpose of that prospecting block is to set appointments with those folks so we can begin the discovery process to find out where we might fit into their organization and sell them something. So the way we take marketing is we're taking marketing to bring people towards us and create familiarity. And then we're using the tool HubSpot because it's just a beautiful tool, and I'm an evangelist as well, that I'm able to create prospecting lists without having to work at it. I mean, it's not like I have a spreadsheet and I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. So then I'm running prospecting blocks, and then as I'm running those prospecting blocks, if I leave a voicemail, then I'll drop them into a sequence that will then kick off an email to them, and then it will prompt my salesperson to pick up the phone and call them 3 days later. So what we're doing is we're taking marketing, we're taking inbound leads, we're taking research that we're doing, and we're taking people that connect with us, who send us stuff. We go to a trade show, all of that information we're getting into HubSpot, and we're using the tool to tell us what we should be doing with that particular contact over time. And in some cases, once we understand buying windows, then we drop them into nurturing campaigns, because if the buying window is closed right now, then we want to nurture them until it's time. So because we want to reach out when the time is right and the probability that they're going to buy is the highest.
That's great. I love it. And I appreciate you for going deep on that subject, because it's a question we get a lot. It's, as I think people who are in a business development role, whether that puts them in a sales job or a marketing job, is they just get overwhelmed with all the technology and all of the things that they could do in a day. So they freeze and they end up doing, they tell themselves they're working, but they're just not, they're not being productive. And I was talking to I can't remember if it was a client or just a friend of mine the other day. Thankfully, I get to have both, right? They're friends and clients. But the comment was, I just don't know what to do every day, and I feel like I have all of these things that are staring me in the face that I could be doing, and I just want these tools to actually help me to be proactive and to not just be something that I'm a slave to, right?
Well, I think that with, especially with whether you're using HubSpot, Zoho, Pipeliner, Salesforce, or, you're putting it on a spreadsheet, which I don't recommend, but however you're managing your world, you have to take time up front to set it all up. I mean, what I explained to you in HubSpot didn't happen in a vacuum. It took weeks of work for us to do, and you have to schedule time. So if you don't know what to do every day, make sure that you got a block for working on how your CRM is going to work for you, or building out a sequence or putting together some some messaging. I totally get where people are coming from when they say it's overwhelming, because even if you think about a sequence or a workflow, you could spend 60 or 70 hours writing all the content, creating the messaging, thinking about the right way to connect with people. So it can be overwhelming. But we go back to your analogy of one brick at a time, one thing at a time. The reason you come in and that you don't know what to do is because you come in and you have no battle rhythm. You have no day set up. So if you're building your business and you've got like marketing stuff that you have to do, you have to schedule the time for it. There's no other way around it. And you can't think about, oh, I'm getting all this done at one time. You think I'm going to do a little bit at a time. So pick one list. And I'll give you an example. For us, we've got a new training program coming up called Fanatical Prospecting for Real Estate Agents. So we can only put 20 people in the course. It's an online course. And we're like, okay, well, how do we like even go about doing this? Because we don't really market to real estate agents. I just have a master trainer on my team who said, I think this would be a good idea. Let's try it. So immediately it was I was completely overwhelmed by how in the world are we going to do this? Because we're a B2B company, not a real estate company. I went to HubSpot and I built a list, and I started typing in real estate anywhere. I got 1.2 million people on my list. I started doing all this, anything like if there's real estate in the URL, if there's real estate in their name, if there's real estate in their company, and I pulled 8,000 people out of my list who have real estate someplace in their name. And I was like, okay, that was really easy. So we built that and then pushed a button and sent an email out to 8,000 people. I only need 20 people in the class, and we filled up the class in one day. I mean, but the first part of it was, when I looked at it, was exactly the wall that your folks walk into. We walked into that wall and said, what are we going to do? And the only thing that I could think of is, okay, well, let me see what's there. And I tried one thing and that worked. And if I had bounced off that, I may have set it aside for a day and come back tomorrow and figured it out again. But that's the thing that I see people doing exactly what you do, is they get overwhelmed by something, or it seems like it's a puzzle that's really hard, but they keep looking at all the big picture stuff instead of, let me try something, let me tweak one thing to see what I can do. And sometimes, like in our case, serendipity happens and we just figure something out and it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, but the only way that you'll know is that you have to try, but you also have to have the time set aside to try. The other thing I would say, if you don't know what to do every day, I'm going to give you a really good piece of advice. And this advice is, it's just free, but most people pay for this. And that is that the more people you talk to, the more business you're going to have. So if you don't know what to do, go talk to somebody. Like, go have a cup of coffee and talk to somebody. Go to a network event and talk to somebody. Pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody. And I promise you, if you keep doing that, you'll have more business.
That's great. And that is probably like I would say the oldest rule in sales that has just been time tested and never fails to be a good thing to do during your workday, right? It's the number of people. Ultimately, the amount of money you take home at the end of the day, whether that's business revenue or commissions, however you want to look at it, is going to have a direct relationship in some ratio of the number of people that you talk to at the top of that funnel, right?
Yep.
And this is just to the folks watching this, that you're never going to have more sales than you have people that you talk to. It's always going to be a smaller number. So if you make this number at the top as big as it can be, then you'll make this number at the bottom bigger. That's that's a great takeaway from that. I appreciate you giving that one away for free. So what I would just to kind of summarize some of this, because I want to ask you about the Book Objections, and I know that we've got a time frame here, but just to tell you guys, if there's a formula that you can pull out of this, it is time blocking, consistency, and then the number of people that you're talking to, right? And you can probably look at all that. Obviously, there's some skills that you want. That's the multiplier, right? If you can improve your skills at each of those different things and the smaller things, then that dollar amount at the end of the day is going to improve. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And in the Book Objections that's behind me, there's a chapter in there called Yes Has a Number, and it really focuses on the levers that you have to pull. So it looks at your entire funnel, exactly what you just said. So what's your conversion funnel all the way through? So all the touches that you might have. And then how do you look at the micro ratios inside your funnel and make little tweaks? Because if you double your ratio at any place in your conversion funnel, you're going to double your sales and double your income. Sometimes doubling a number is not realistic, but if you look at all the micro ratios and you make small tweaks inside that, it's relatively easy to double your output just by taking a look at the numbers. And what I find is that most people don't know their numbers. And when we go back to that person who comes in the morning and just doesn't know what to do, there's a really fair chance that they have absolutely no idea about what the input is that creates output. And once you understand the conversion funnel, the top to the bottom, then you can begin improving your skills, your messaging, what you say, how you do it, how you balance your prospecting and your marketing to bring people into the funnel. You start A/B testing things, and you start seeing, well, you know, this is not working for me, but this is working for me. And that's how you start getting better and better and better. But it really does begin with that science of how things progress through a conversion funnel. And there is no other magic pill for that. Like there's no other thing that we can tell you. That's why I love what you said. You know, you talk to a lot of people. The number of people you talk to is not going to be equal to the people that do business with you. So if you want more people to do business with you, you have to increase at the top of the funnel. Then you can start looking at how well do I close them? How well do I convert them? How well do I move them to a next step? And even look at, for example, what products do they get from me, or, how much money do they give me? Those type of things. Yep. You can begin working on along the way. But if you don't know your numbers, you don't know, I mean, you're dead in the water. And by the way, you made a comment earlier about elite athletes. And I guarantee you find, this is baseball season, you go onto go to the Atlanta Braves and go find one of the Braves and ask them what their numbers is. And I guarantee you that they know their stats verbatim, because that's how they get paid.
Yep. No doubt. No doubt. And I talk, on the marketing coaching side, I talk to clients a lot about that funnel, right? Knowing your numbers. And I want them to know that ratio between your customer acquisition cost, which takes into account all of those things that you described, all of those different steps, and their lifetime value of their customer. And from that, you can build a business, you can grow, you can scale a business, and you got to know all those other numbers in order to know what that CAC, that customer acquisition cost, ultimately is. And then you want to be able to zoom in and tweak things, turn up the volume on this dial, turn down the volume on this dial, split test. So I really appreciate you talking about that. That is key, especially if you're looking to really scale a business. So to segue, want to wrap this up, but I want you to, if you can, please talk about the Book Objections. I'd love for people to know what you want them to know about it and where they can get it.
Yeah, I think that, when we look at fanatical prospecting, one of the things that scares people the most about prospecting is that people are going to tell them no. I mean, that's what creates the fear. And then that's why we have such a hard time talking to people in the first place. So Objections is a unique book that takes a real look at sales objections, but it looks at it both from a scientific format. Why do we fear rejection? Which, by the way, is not psychological, it is biological. And why do people resist us along the way? And then it really dives into giving you framework so you can deal with the objections you get all the way throughout the sales process, from prospecting all the way to asking people to make a commitment to you. And I love this book. It's been a really, really cool to watch it take off and watch how people are using it in their personal lives and their business. And even people who are not in sales are picking it up, because it teaches you how to become rejection proof, and so that you're not afraid of any situation, and you'll know what to say, how to say it, how to respond, and how to be emotionally disciplined in those moments. And we said this earlier, in every sales conversation, the human being that exerts the greatest amount of emotional control has the highest probability of getting the outcome they desire. And this particular book gives you the tools that you need to have that level of emotional control, so that you can stand toe-to-toe with anyone and you can succeed. And it's a really nice marry up to fanatical prospecting. So fanatical prospecting, A lot of people call it the Harry Potter of sales books because it's, you know, it's just sold everywhere. Objections is the rest of the story. So if you read one, you're going to want to get the other, and you can pick up Objections anywhere. You can pick them up in airports, Barnes and Noble, and of course on Amazon or any place that sells books. It's also out on Audible, and I'm the voice on the book. So it just came out in June on Audible, so you can download it there or on Google Play or on iTunes. It'll be an audiobook in any of those places.
That's great. I appreciate it. And I'm an Audible power user. I've probably read as many, if not more, books using Audible. And this isn't really the intention of this call, but with you being an author, I try to tell folks all the time that, like, guys, this is your mind is your multiplier, right? It's just like what I was saying about that skill being the multiplier to those numbers, is like that. It's practically free.
Yes.
Learn. It's practically free. And the cost, the $15, $20, $25 for a book that you've put in years of your life into, it's almost unfair to be able to get access to someone's mind for that. So I am a big proponent of, you need to always be learning, ABL. So guys, if you're watching this, definitely go grab Jeb's newest book. Read all of Jeb's stuff. Follow him on Instagram. Get on that email list. He puts out a ton of great content. With that, I just want to say thank you so much to you, Jeb, for being on the call today and for speaking to the folks in the group. And as a kind of a parting thing, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or to follow you?
Yeah, best way is, like, Instagram is a great place. Follow me on Instagram. I'm at SalesGravy. I'm on Twitter at SalesGravy. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I suggest clicking the follow button on LinkedIn because they cap you at 30,000 connections, and I'm out. On Facebook, I'm /SalesGravy, and my fan page is Jeb on Demand. And then for, you know, books are everywhere, but I highly recommend go to my YouTube channel. There's more than 400 videos there. We put new videos up every single day. It's free, so it's a great opportunity to check out information on sales. My podcast is Sales Gravy, and you can type in my name, Jeb Blount, Blount, and you can pick it up Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, anywhere that you get podcasts. And then finally, I would go to salesgravy.com. We are the most visited sales website on the planet. And there are thousands and thousands of articles and podcasts and videos there, not just by me, but by sales experts from across the spectrum. And they're all free, and you can go in, take a look at them, read them, digest them. Some of them will be relevant, some of them won't. But I would suggest doing all of those things. And I do hope you'll follow me. I love Instagram. It's just a really good tool. And with IGTV now, we're putting more videos up on Instagram. So follow me and connect with me, and send me a note and let me know that you heard me here.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Jeb. We'll close this meeting out. Guys, if you're watching this, I want you to comment on this post with your favorite takeaway from the video. And I would love to do a follow-up on this, and we'll do a recap. But between now and the next time we speak, Jeb, thank you so much for this. I really hope we get a chance to chat again in the future.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice one.
All right. Take care.